So in this video I'd like to make the argument that command trucks shouldn't have the ability to spawn players. Because I think that convenient spawns ruin the gameplay experience in milsim games. I think it ruined it in Squads, Hell Let Loose, Postscriptum, and similar games. So first I'd like to show you the basic gameplay loop of Reforger and what makes it different. So at the beginning you have the spawn, so you spawn in and then you walk to the armory, and that's like the social place in the game. You walk to the armory and there's a lot of players, they're chatting, talking about where to go. And then there's transport, where somebody drives you or flies you to an area, or you take a vehicle or you walk there to yourself. Then there's the search. This the part where I call that that's like 1 kilometer from where you expect combat. That's where you hear gunfire in the distance, and you see at nighttime perhaps you see tracer fire. And then comes the magic moment when the firefight starts. And that's like the moment when you see something in the distance, you tell all your squad mates there's something, you ready your gun, you rest it on an object, and you start shooting. Or the enemy sees you first and they start shooting. And listen, it feels magical in Reforger because of the sudden emotional high you get when combat starts. And it can only be like that if the build-up before that takes effort. And this can take about 1 to even 30 minutes in certain situations. Like on average, I think 5 to 6 minutes. Let's say if you're attacking from one town to the other, it's usually 5-6 minutes from a spawn to getting into combat. But if you, for example, you want to do some special forces mission where you sneak through half the island to get to a choke point where you can put landmines or ambush enemy convoys, that can take you 20-30 minutes just to get through enemy lines to set up the ambush. But then it feels even more rewarding the longer it takes. And here's what happens when you have a command truck. Then everything here gets cut out, and you just respawn, combat, respawn, combat. And usually command trucks are parked 400 or 500 meters next to a capsule. And that has two problems. The first one is that players burn out on the emotional high because it's too frequent, because you don't have the build-up before of it. So it just wears out like that. And the second problem is the emotional high itself doesn't have as much value because of the lack of the build-up. And it also delays the frequency of it if you have the build-up. And it also affects the game on a tactical and strategic level. So on a strategic level, it basically cheats support players out of their support role. So for example, if, let's say you are in Morton and you want to attack the Levy military base. It usually happens, you spawn here, you get your guns, somebody drives you possibly to that point, and then you make your way up the hill to attack the place. And sometimes there's dedicated truck driver just ferrying players back and forth, or perhaps helicopter player who flies you over there. And if there's a command truck that manages to sneak once through the enemy lines and deploy, then those players are basically, they lose their job. And that's, I think, the bad thing that can happen to support roles in multiplayer. When they become these gimmicks that nobody really needs, they're just gimmicks that players use when they feel like it, or when they want to make a cool YouTube video about it, instead of them being this thing that players desperately have to depend on to win the game. And there's a tactical problem also to it. So let's imagine you are somewhere in that ridge that goes up here in the forest, about to attack Levy. Okay, so in the forest here, and Levy's over that ridge. Let's say you sneak up here with 10 or 20 players. And let's say there's a machine gunner up there. He spots your squad, then he opens fire. And let's say a bullet misses you by centimeters. Now there's two variants of the situation. The first one is your respawn is 200 meters away down the hill. Then you really don't care about almost getting hit. You're just a Terminator. You try to get your hit off. Maybe he wins, maybe you win. Doesn't matter because you're back in combat in a minute. So players play like Terminators, and suppression doesn't function as it should. Now let's imagine that situation if your respawn is about 3 kilometers away and it takes you up to 10 minutes to get back to that point. Now if that bullet comes in, it almost hits you again. You probably go prone and you spend the next 2 or 3 minutes hiding behind that rock. And the more the machine gun up there shoots in your direction, the more you're going to remain pinned in location. Unless your teammates can return fire so the other guy has to duck away. And then suppression works. And that's the magic of this game, is that there's a lot of things that directly affect the combat part of the game. But they only can work if the build-up before is there. Because if the players don't fear the respawn, then they don't fear suppression, and they don't act realistically in a firefight. See how it all comes together, basically. If you give the player the large build-up, then you get the rewarding payoff with combat being deep and engaging and also mattering a lot. That's why I think that respawn trucks or command trucks shouldn't have any respawn capability. Also, there shouldn't be any squad leaders having any backpacks as a respawn capability. Because I'm slightly worried that because the developers wrote in the 1.2 patch notes how they're further developing on the whole backpack spawning or command truck spawning thing. And I think it's a dead end for the game. I think there should be only... Because all it does, it gets players used to the quick, easy respawn. And once players get addicted to it, then it's hard to get them away from it again. And then the game can get boring really quickly if you don't have the build-up before combat. But the game can still keep the command truck radio ability. In case you wonder what that is, it's basically, let's say those 2 points are not connected because they're too far away. And if you park a command truck in between, then it can bridge the signal. So you have an unbroken chain of command points and supply points. And I think here's the funny thing is that most players probably are not aware of that secondary function of the command truck, or they simply don't care about it because the respawn magic portal ability it has is much more powerful than anything else. So it should still keep the radio bridging feature, but it shouldn't have any respawn capabilities because respawning should be a thing of spawning in bases and then going through the whole build-up to get to combat.